Hello, it's VTR Dave, back at the restoration station. Welcome to the channel, and today we're embarking on an epic mission to restore this vintage Palitoy 12-inch talking R2-D2, released way back in 1979. That's a long time ago. This little droid is actually a variation of the Kenner 12-inch R2-D2, which was released a year earlier in 1978. That one had some Death Star plans hidden in a secret compartment. Palitoy replaced those Death Star plans with a voice box and a button on the front to activate the sounds. I've not actually heard those sounds, so I'm looking forward to restoring this to hear them. Now, this one is actually owned by my good friend Gav, otherwise known as One-Eyed Yakface. I meet him quite often at the shows, and he gave me a box with all these parts in there. I guess disassembling is perhaps easier than reassembling. I'm sensing that there may be some Jawas around here. Jawas? Jawas. That just doesn't sound right. Jawa? Jawa? Oh no, it sounds odd now. Anyway, I'm not going to hang around. Let's crack on. The good news, all the parts seem to be there. The bad news, the voice box has been completely dismantled, so I can only assume there's a problem and the previous person had a go at fixing and then gave up. I'm not exactly sure how it all goes back together. There are a few parts. Usually I have the luxury of dismantling these things myself and I can document as I go. But thankfully I have another one, which I purchased at Echo Base Live quite a while ago now with the intention of restoring. This one's very yellowed and it has some mechanical failures that I think I can fix by designing and printing my own 3D parts. I was going to restore this at the same time as Gav's, but as they're quite different repairs, I'm going to do this in its own restoration video. However, I can take this one apart and I can see exactly how to reassemble Gav's. Usually inside of Kenner and Palitoy talking toys, you would have an Ozen record player. For example, the Imperial Troop Transporter and the Knight Rider Kit 2000 car both have Ozen. This one doesn't have any Ozen markings at all, and it certainly feels different the way it's manufactured. So yeah, let's see if we can take this apart and understand how it works. Beginning to see why this wasn't put back together. There are pieces inside here that are loose now. Why is this not opening? Ah, there we go. Ooh, okay. All right, it's apart. There are parts of the restoration process I just don't film because I think you'd find it really dull. Yes, duller than the stuff I do film, but it's the part I love the most. I've just spent 30 to 45 minutes trying to understand how this little record player works, and more importantly, how I can reassemble it again. Springs are not your friends. Anyway, I'll show you how this all works later on and a few tricks for reassembling. There are a couple of small issues I've noticed with Gav's record player. The first is that the push button has no feedback. I think it's a plastic spring. It may have snapped. This is what it looks like on mine, so I'll have a go at fixing this later. And there are a couple of small screws missing for the record player as well. I'm just looking in my bag of spares. And do you know where these little small screws come from? That's right, G1 transformers. Always good to keep these. Always handy to have spares. It's time to assemble Gav's record player. I really want to see if this works. And I'll start with the needle arm. And that little spring that I was concerned about, it just needs straightening. So let's get that sorted first. Now, to test the motor, I need to put the record in first, as that should close the circuit. So let's just see if we get anything spinning. It's quite awkward because there's a spring underneath there. There we go, it's through. Oh, I can hear it. Struggling a little bit, which is not Surprising. There we go. Just let it run for a bit. The spring just wants to push the record player out. So a little trick is to get yourself some tweezers. I'm just going to put them on the bottom there, and that should hold the record in place. Now I can drop the needle arm into the post here. It's all very fiddly. There we go, in it goes, and just leave the needle there. And you want the spring on the outside of the case. Just there. Now we're ready for the case. It slots in at the left-hand side and just slides down. Now before you slide it down, you want to take the needle arm spring and just push that so it sits inside the case. And then drop the case down like so. It should slide in like that. And now you're ready to let go of the record underneath with your tweezers. And that should slot into place. I've just put one screw in so we can test this. Right. Oh no, you idiot. I forgot the band, didn't I, around the record? Oh.
We're doomed.
Just for reference, the band goes around the post from the motor and then around the edge of the record, like so. And ideally you want to make sure that it's not twisted. And then the rest of the assembly is like, as I showed before. Right, let's give it a try. Let's put the batteries back in. I'm expecting this. Oh! Only needed one battery, but I'll put both in so it runs at the appropriate speed. But that's a good sign. Let's try and see if we can get some other sounds. I've never heard a talking R2-D2 before, so this is going to be interesting. It's running really slow, but the good news is it's working. But it is running really slow. This message is vital to the rebels. It's pretty cool, R2-D2 sounds and beeps. Right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this apart, I'm going to give everything a clean, I'm going to get that motor running nice and smoothly, and then hopefully that'll be running at the appropriate speed. I think it's time for a commercial break.
Star Wars. You and your children loved it. Now the Earthlings at Kenner have asked my associate and me to present the Star Wars collection. Truly remarkable toys and games for your children. What are you so excited about now? My goodness, the Star Wars TIE Fighter and X-Wing Fighter. Now your children can relive our great space battles or collect our wonderful Star Wars companions with Kenner's Star Wars action figures. R2, it's a little new. Kenner's new radio-controlled R2-D2 anyone can command. Ah, the Star Wars land speeder that moves like it's floating. And here's Kenner's Death Star space station, 4 floors of action. A trash compactor, too. Listen, R2, that's the Star Wars electronic laser battle, a game of speed, reflex, and reaction. These and other toys and games in Kenner's Star Wars collection are sold separately. Batteries are not included. May the Force be with you and your children.
Okay, I've cleaned everything up. The motor, the record, the needle, the diaphragm. Everything should be running nice and smooth. I've got batteries in there. Let's give it a go. Oh dear, that's running way too fast now. Oh. Okay, so we've gone from really slow to really fast. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to adjust this. I can't really think of a way of slowing that down. I've been trying to slow this damn thing down. I've tried everything. Tried adding friction to the motor, to the needle, to the record, to the diaphragm. I've had this thing open and shut God knows how many times, and it's made no difference at all. But it dawned on me that there is one thing that I can adjust. And it's this, the elastic band. This thing's been in there since 1979. It's lost its strength, it's stretched. Not surprising really, it's not designed to last decades. So I'm going to replace this with a new elastic band. And that raises an interesting topic. Reproductions, or repro. This is, I guess, a repro elastic band. This is the one that was in there in 1979. It came from the factory. It's original. This one is new. I bought it yesterday. So it is a repro. I guess. People will call it that, certainly in the vintage Star Wars world. And I know some people are going to just moan about this. But what can you do? There are going to be certain situations where it makes sense to replace things, especially perishables. I want this record player to be working again, as it was when it came out of the factory. People ask, are you pro or anti-repro? My answer is both. It really depends on the situation. If this was a R2-D2 with a box and it had been unplayed with, no, I'm not going to take it apart and fix up the record player. I'm going to leave it as it is. In this situation, of course, it's already been opened. I'm going to replace it. I'd love to do a video, actually a separate video on the whole subject of repro, but I just know I'm going to get huge amounts of just abuse, basically, and I don't think I could handle that. You know, we really need to have a proper discussion about repro. This whole idea that it's black and white, that you have to be either in the pro or in the anti-repro camp, it's just nuts. You have to think about the situation, the context, and then make an appropriate decision. And in this case, I'm replacing the old elastic band with a new elastic band. That's what I'm going to do. While I'm here, just want to look at this button because there's no feedback. If you look at my one, as you can see, it springs back. Now I believe that's because this is a plastic spring and that plastic has snapped. If you look inside mine, there's a little extra piece there which isn't on Gav's. Now I'm not going to fix this now, but I would like to remove this switch just to see how it's broken, because I believe in the future I could 3D print a replica of that, which would be a very nice fix. Yeah, so let's take this apart and just have a look, see how it's broken. There you go, as expected. A piece of plastic has snapped on Gav's that acted as a spring. Highly surprising. It's pretty old now. I think the only appropriate fix would be to have a replica 3D print. It's the only way you're going to get the strength. Gluing and other tricks just aren't going to cut it. Finally, we're ready for reassembly. I've cleaned all of R2's pieces, and I think I'll start with this one here and get the push button back in place. Here's the push button that activates the sounds. It just simply slots into the body. That's what it looks like from the front. And that's held in with two of these washers with the points in the middle. I'm sure there's a technical term. One was missing from Gav, so I've borrowed one from mine. I can replace that later. And I've flattened them out because I want a really good grip on the posts here in the body, because I've seen people push these buttons pretty hard, especially if the sounds don't activate once these R2s get pretty old. While I'm here, I just want to show you the dome as well. It's just like the 3 3/4 version. It's got a little prong here for the clicker. Now on mine, this is actually snapped. So I'm hoping I can borrow this from Gav in the future or from somebody else, so I can do a replica 3D printed part of it. That would be a great way to learn how to do some CAD. Yeah, that'd be nice. And one other little thing, this slides in and it's held in with this plastic screw, and I found the best way to undo it and tighten it up is to get yourself a standard 10mm socket, and then you can just use your fingers to tighten it. Right, let's get on with the reassembly. I've also slotted the original record band under this post so it's nice and safe, and it means it can remain with its original R2 forevermore.
Thank the maker.
I've got one last thing to do, and that's say thank you to Gav for trusting me with your R2-D2. I'm going to hand this back to you now, and hopefully you're going to be really pleased with this. But wait, what's this box on my desk? Well, it's the next restoration. I'm really looking forward to this. It's just come from the States. I'm going to help somebody else out. You want a sneak peek? Of course you do. Stay safe and cheers everyone.